Stand up. Hi, here I am. It's Saturday, so I thought I'd bring you a conversation with comedian, cultural commentator, and the purveyor of a great newsletter about music. New music for old.substack.com. The great Christian Finnegan joins me for Christian Finnegan Saturdays, or Saturdays with Christian. I don't know. Haven't really named it. I just like talking to him at the end of the week and hear his original thoughts, thinking, framing on many of the issues and news stories that we've been covering. So, Christian, always great. I hope you'll support him, subscribe to his newsletter, and he'll join us out in Las Vegas at Pod Jam. Get your tickets now to Pod Jam. The link is in the show notes. That's it. No big intro, no news or anything else on the weekend because I try to take some time off too, but I do have this great conversation with Christian, who's always awesome, so let's do it. It's Saturday, and I've got Christian Finnegan joining me. He will be joining us in Las Vegas. I can't wait to hang out with you again this year in March. Great to see you. Thank you for joining me, and how are you here?
I'm fine. The mere thought of being in Las Vegas right now compared to what we're sitting in here in New York just immediately put a smile on my face. That's only like not even 2 months away.
This is a long spell of the deep cold. It's been very, very cold. Is that what you're referring to?
It's been unpleasant to be outside, unpleasant to have to walk your dogs. Not big fans. The whole ordeal.
I was going to ask you, your dogs don't like to go out there in the cold? And is it true, or is it a myth that the dogs don't like the salt? It burns their feet. Is that right?
It does. It does burn their feet. It gets in the nooks and crannies, especially when they get the salt in their feet and then they step on snow or wetness and it becomes wet and in their feet. It fucks with them. That's why you see like those booties and stuff like that.
Do you put boots? Do you put boots on your dogs?
I do, but I haven't. The ones they had were fucked up, and I haven't gotten new ones, and so I've just been inhumane this last week.
But you have taken the dogs out there in the freezing cold.
Yeah, you got to pick your spots.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're getting out there. Better than me. I have a calf injury. I've told everybody.
What'd you do?
I hurt myself skiing the last run of the second 2 days with my daughters last week. It's fine, but it's given me it's put me on the bench, on the couch.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I know how much this being active is important to you, Pete.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. Well, I'm very happy to have you joining me. There's a lot that I wanted to talk with you about. Obviously, it's been a crazy week. How do you feel? Have you figured out your feelings 1 week in to the descent?
I am for it. I wish it was go faster. Just it's all moving too slow for me. I mean, it's one of those things where it hasn't touched me personally, and so it's hard to not sort of feel like this isn't a big deal, like with the full understanding that it's touched other people and it's going to continue touching other people and that eventually it will touch me. And I'm not, of course, it's affecting me in an emotional sense and an intellectual sense, but it's like my life isn't in any immediate danger. And so it's kind of easy to sort of be like, everybody's overreacting, which of course is the first, second, and third impulse of every sort of upper middle class white dude pundit is to like, everybody's got to relax. I'm so sick of that mindset, that the sort of bloggerati has, the Yasha monks of the world, like everybody just needs to chill out. No, what needs to happen before your alarm bells start to go off? But, I don't know what it will mean. I think the life is long and a year is a long time. And I think maybe we'll look at things very differently. Of course, my main fear is just that the changes that they're trying to make right now are irrevocable or they don't respond to public opinion. Like, I know public opinion is going to turn eventually. My fear is that it won't matter because they've entrenched themselves in a way that public opinion is no longer relevant.
What do you mean by that specifically? I think I know what you mean, but the way that they're able to operate as a result of a lack of public scrutiny, the power that they have, the leverage that they have, the fact. What do you mean?
Well, in terms of voting rights and these civil rights cases that have been ground to a halt, it's like, well, what happens in the interim until eventually somebody starts up, hey, maybe we should have a civil rights division, until that happens, how much is affected by that, and how much do people just sort of get used to, I don't claim to be, I'm no Timothy Snyder, but I have read on tyranny. But, one of the things that I hear experts talk about is like the mundanity. What is I don't know,
I don't know
the proper
actually, but
form of
I'll take
mundane there.
mundaneness. Yeah.
The mundaneness of autocracy, or of tyranny, quote unquote, that, you think it's going to be, guns in the streets, and maybe it will be eventually, but it's more just it's the frog in the pot of water thing. It's just chipping away at the rights you've taken for granted until you no longer think that you deserve them, much less can have them. That's just like, well, of course I need to show my identification in order to pass through town. It's like, of course, you can't travel to another state to have an abortion. I mean, of course you can have an abortion. That's ridiculous. That's what I worry, is just the sort of eroding of what people's expectations of day-to-day life are. And just, with the stacking of the courts and all these, Cash Patel types and sort of Cash Patel minions that are being sort of staffed into these positions, that I do worry about the machinery being altered, so that when public opinion inevitably turns, which it will, because it turns on everybody, it won't matter. That's my fear.
Right. It won't matter, or it won't be connected to or blamed on, for whatever reason, the current people in power, which usually it does, no matter what. The people in power suffer as a result, or the consequences as a result of what's happening to the price of eggs. But the concern I feel like I have, and I think what I'm hearing you say, is that that's not necessarily going to be even connected to the current regime. Can we call it a regime yet? I mean,
yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, they're two related, but slightly different issues. But yes, that of course, the one thing that they're going to spend a lot of time and attention on is the misinformation factory. That the sort of manufacturing of consent, so to speak, that they're going to work overtime, because that's probably one of the few things that Trump actually cares about, like image and whatnot. And so I think that it really is, they're going to keep I think they've even said that eggs, that I think something like 75% of the agriculture workers in California didn't go to work last week because they're worried about immigration raids. And it's like, well, that's going to have a pretty immediate effect on prices of things, within the next month or so. It'll probably have an effect. And will people blame who needs to be blamed, or will the Bannons of the world be able to redirect that into,
I'm not even sure that the Bannons at this point, that they need a guide. For example, I guess they always kind of need a guide, but this week we saw a couple Sig Heils from Elon Musk. And
come on, let's not judge.
You think it was the autism?
And I love the idea that somehow justifies it. It's like
the most insulting thing in the world to any person with autism, or that loves anybody anywhere on the spectrum, that it somehow makes you a fascist.
Yeah, but I don't even care. Let's say that's true. Let's even say that's true. That it is completely a result of his autism, which somehow does not stop him from functioning in society the other 23 hours and 59 minutes of the day. But for that one reason, he was just taken up in a swirl of autism and had to give. If you are on the spectrum in a way that makes you salute Hitler twice on stage, then I'm sorry, you can't be a part of running anything. Well, period. I don't care. It's like if you're 5'2" and you're legally blind, you can't be on the Knicks. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that's ableist, but there are certain job qualifications that a person must have in order to function as a representative of the United States government to the world or whatever. And I think being able to control yourself from doing Sig Heil is one of them. Well, I feel like that should remove you from the running of any sort of public front-facing position.
Very well said. You shared David Roberts on this, taking it a little further here over on Blue Sky. David Roberts posted, The rules, if you're keeping track. If a single left activist anywhere in the world says defund the police, it becomes the official position of the Democratic Party now and forever. If the president's top surrogate repeatedly say Heils on stage, it's ambiguous and impossible to interpret. I love that. In case you're keeping track, these are the rules of the game.
It's all so grossly dishonest, and so many of the people who we count on, or we used to count on, the arbiters, the people in the press, to sort of determine who's working in good faith and who's not, have just so completely either abdicated that responsibility, or they're so annoyed by the liberals they're surrounded by in New York or DC or San Francisco that they would rather side with the Hitler apologists than have to backtrack at all on their demands that everyone calm down and that everything is fine.
Right.
It's like when push comes to shove, it's like if it comes to them having to sort of admit they were wrong or to change their posture in a way that does not just instinctively punch left constantly, they won't do it. They'll just get pissy and they'll just move they'll adjust. I mean, people, I've said that, I think I may have said this to you before. It's like people have this idea that people have beliefs and that what they do flows from those beliefs, or that they have principles and then their actions are governed by those principles. Whereas I think increasingly it is the exact opposite, that people have things that they want to do, or people they don't like, or postures they want to take towards certain groups of people. And then they will find whatever principles, they will backfill that with whatever principles will align with those sort of lizard brain feelings. And so, God forbid a Nate Silver is insulted in public. I mean, the thing that made me say Nate Silver specifically is when Biden made his quote unquote controversial pardons. I don't know specifically he was referring to Hunter or who he was referring to, but he's like, don't vote for any Democrat who has not condemned Biden over these illegal pardons or absurd pardons or whatever. And it's like, well, guess what he hasn't had anything to say about? All of the January 6th, and again, I'm shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, it's Nate Silver. He's a fucking tool. But
no, it's a perfect example. And also you bring up January 6th, and I wanted to get your reaction, because those are the two kind of three highlights of outrage that got the most conversation. We can decide whether or not they should, but
I'm just glad my wife's finally coming home.
Oh.
What if this whole time my wife was in jail January 6th?
I did not know that she was
just never came out. Yeah.
A J6er. That's so weird. It's weird because I thought I saw her in your background not long ago, a few weeks ago. So
she's the female shaman.
There was the Sig Heil, there was the confirmation hearings, and there was the J6 pardons, the last of which I think deservedly got the most attention and reaction. But it was just another example of, going back to your earlier point, like, how are people going to defend this? To me, the easiest way to not get frustrated and flustered and angry about how people who's, MAGA world or other people that I know, even posted on Facebook or whatever, defend Trump, the easiest way for me is to just remind yourself it's a cult. Because the idea that he pardoned these guys, all of them, including the guys who went after cops, and that right-wingers who think cops can never do anything wrong and should have immunity from any prosecution, like, you can't hold both those thoughts in your mind at the same spot.
Yes,
you can't be consistent unless you're in a cult.
Because, well, one of two things. First of all, it's not a cult. It's not a cult because there's no sex.
I think there might not be sex for Trump. I'm going to start floating that. I mean, honestly, who's fucking him? Because I don't think anybody is.
No, I mean, well, I remember when Milo, whatever his face was sort of spilling the tea about Laura Loomer, and when she was hanging around with Trump, that he basically implied that he doesn't really have sex anymore, but she was just blowing him, which I 100% would believe that. Like, I can't fathom Donald Trump working up the physical energy to actually move his pelvis in a back and forth motion.
Well, stop. You're making people think about that, and that's hard, and we're going to lose. We're going to lose everybody.
What's hard, Pete?
You know what? I'm going to go. back to the J6 pardons and
Wait, but the other thing, when I said you said two things. Now, of course, my hilarious joke has taken me off
the issues
track.
that J6, the pardons, the confirmation hearings, and the Sig Heil. But having the two things, holding two things in your mind at once are, I'm pro cop no matter what they do, and I'm also pro people who beat the shit out of cops.
They're not holding two ideas at the same time. They're holding one idea. And that one idea is I win, you lose. That's the only idea. I win, you lose. That's it. I get what I want. You don't get what you want. And the way they lie to themselves is they say, well, that's how you're acting. So I'm just acting the way you're acting. Like, that's how they justify it to themselves. It's like, you're completely lying about your intentions and you're completely dishonest. So that frees me up to do the same. It's a permission structure that they've now created themselves, which will, I mean, goddamn, that the pastor who spoke for trans people and immigrants in front of Trump and Vance. I saw some dude had a post where it's like, this is the face of evil. This woman is she hates God and she hates God's followers, and you have to hate her just as much back. And again, that is a permission structure. Yeah, that's a permission structure of, it's like that's what leads to genocide. Now, I'm not saying that it's a direct one step away. It's not even saying it's 5 steps away. But the idea of dehumanizing is like, they're trying to kill me. So not only do I have to be willing to kill you, it's probably better if I kill you first, because that's the mindset. And
I don't think
that's
you're going.
The sort of slow erosion.
I don't think that's hyperbolic at all. I think Rwanda showed us that, and there's plenty of other times in history. That's why we have to be so careful that we don't dehumanize them as well, right?
It is difficult. They don't make it easy.
They don't.
I'm not going to lie to you. Honestly, though, of all the things I think about most MAGA people, I always know they're human. They're painfully human. They're painfully human, because it's like, I know, I mean, this is maybe just my sort of slightly jaundiced perspective on the world, but it's like, I think everyone's full of shit to some degree.
Right.
I think that not only are we not honest about our intentions, I think that a lot of people don't even know what their intentions truly are.
I think that's fair.
That they're working on these sort of guttural lizard brain impulses. And like I said, that they then backfill it with whatever philosophical or principled jargon they need to sort of just justify their gut impulses.
Right. Like,
I mean, to me, if there's one thing that defines being MAGA, is like, it's funny how things go back. I mean, whatever, during the Bush administration, when Stephen Colbert came up with that term truthiness, which, he was used to describe, George W. Bush during the Iraq thing. It's like, it feels true to me. It feels true to me. But there used to be a level of embarrassment about it. It's like, they would at least try to prove that it was true. They would start from the fact that it feels true, and then they would try to justify it being true. Now, if it feels true, that's all we need. That's all I need. We're in a war. This feels right to me. Therefore, you're wrong. And, goes from there.
Really well said. No, I like the way you talk.
Was that a Sling Blade imitation?
Thank you. That was my way of getting into asking you about the Academy Award nominations, and more importantly, the Academy Award show. I was on CNN last night to commentate about that, amongst other issues. And apparently there are some people who don't think they should have the Academy Awards. The bottom line reason why, because of the LA fires, why they should is because there are people that make money at those award shows. A lot of people, you're going to take money out of people's pockets. So don't do that. That's what I think. I think it's as simple as that. But did you pay attention? You pay attention to these things, don't you? You watch these films and you have thoughts about things.
I do have thoughts about things.
The question last night was, a lot of the nominations were for movies and people who are representing, kind of progressive cause, immigration, trans woman, and more. And so the Academy Awards aren't backing down from nominating films that deal with these progressive, causes and stances. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I don't know how to take that. I haven't seen Emilia Perez. I have seen many people I respect who don't think a ton of it. And so I don't want to assume that just because it's about trans issues that I don't want to bestow it. I don't want to be condescending by assuming that it's a wonderful piece of art.
One of the people you respect the most is J.K. Rowling, so I'm not surprised by her reaction to it.
That is true. It's I mean, if you want to believe my lower back tattoo, for sure. I think that, I guess it's slightly, I'm more curious about what the nominations are next year and the year after, and whether these movies continue to get made.
Right, that's the key
extent
point
that they are.
Right, because will the studio executives, I guess Apple and Amazon are pretty big film, studios now, right? And they were both at the inauguration. Jeff Bezos and Tim Cook, and who knows where the rest of the studio heads, Netflix, and where they all stand. Maybe we need Costco to start making TV shows, because they are a corporate leader.
And they would make them in bulk. Probably.
Fine, I can binge them.
Why get 10 episodes from HBO when you can get like 42 jumbo size episodes from Costco? If they made a show about how delicious the Costco rotisserie chicken is, I would watch that.
I really believe you.
I've had to swear off the Costco chickens because they give me a stomach ache, but they're so fucking delicious.
Oh, you're making me want one.
They're so juicy and they're so cheap. And I guess somebody told me that they basically pump them with like salt water, like saline, to like make them juicy and puffy and everything. But I don't care. They're delicious, and they're all I have now. They're the one corporation I can shop out and not feel any sense of like disgust.
All right. Anything else that I missed? What else was I going to ask you? Oh, do you just have any thoughts on the confirmation hearings? Anybody? Who's your favorite? Who do you got? Who do you like?
I hate, and this is such a Democratic thing where it's like they always feel like, well, we can't vote against everybody. We have to show how bipartisan we are. And of course, again, this is another situation where the Republicans have realized this and the goalposts have just moved. And I'm not the first person to acknowledge this. I'm probably not the 50th person to acknowledge this, but that guy, John Ratliff, who was, I think he was nominated to be director of national security.
CIA, right?
But yeah, but in the first term, in Trump's first term, I think he was supposed to be DNS, and he was uniformly shut down. And they're like, yeah, no way. Like a bunch of Republicans even voted against him. If I'm not mistaken, I know it was a different position than CIA had, but now he sails right through because we have to keep our powder dry to not even really fully fight against Pete Hegseth. They're gonna be able to shut down maybe Tulsi Gabbard and maybe RFK Jr. and they're gonna call that a huge fucking victory, disregarding the fact that the reason that Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. won't get through, if they don't get through, is because a lot of Republicans don't like them either. A lot of the Republican senators. And so it's like they really won't have any scalps to point to. Once the Pete Hegseth thing moved forward, this is always the way it is. Like there's a lot of stink and the Republicans seem a little back-footed. And they don't seem like they're sure they're going to be able to conquer their gag reflex enough to go forward with whatever Trump wants. But if you give it time, if you give it a couple weeks, they will find a way. They will find a way to swallow their self-esteem and their pride. And, and they're back in line again. So it looks like Hegseth's a done deal, which is just incredibly terrifying and depressing. And luckily, I think he, in addition to being a Nazi, in addition to being a wife beater and a drunk and a piece of shit, I also think based on what I've read, he's pretty incompetent. So I have the feeling that it may not go as well as he would like it to.
So let's do this improv. Okay, so it says here that he's applying for Secretary of Defense. It says here that your last job was you hosted a weekend show on Fox News. Okay, now that was your last job?
Oh, my! We were supposed to play along. I did host the show on Fox, but I would say my real job is putting away those beers, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. You seem qualified.
Getting a little poon.
Yeah, well, I like the way you talk about women. You seem super qualified.
Absolutely.
And also,
I mean,
it says here
honestly,
you were in the military too, so you're definitely qualified as tens of millions of other Americans who are in the military and drink and do bad things.
don't forget that I also lobbied for the release of that soldier who murdered.
Right, Gallagher. Yeah,
Don't forget that.
He was such an extremist that the other guys in his military purged him. Basically, that's Pete Hegseth. That should have been the thing that was brought up. The other guys in your unit, they were not exactly progressive, pansy, liberal. They were like, get out! This guy's crazy. He has Christian nationalist tattoos. Here he is.
I don't know where this is going, man. I'm trying to not get like despairing about it, but it ain't good.
It's not good.
It's not good, Pete.
It's not good.
Things are not good.
One day at a time. We got football. We have things to distract us while we get back to work at the same time. So take care of yourself. Stay in the fight.
Jalen Brunson is averaging 28.9 points in the month of January.
Wow. I root for the Knicks.
For the record.
I root for the Knicks and only the Knicks and only because of you. So there you go.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Thank you for talking to me here on a Saturday. Keep up. Please keep talking to me. I love when you join me. It means a lot to me and others. And
Thanks,
can't wait to see you in Vegas.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Christian Finnegan. How about it? Very honest, forthright, interesting, funny, wise. Love him. He's going to join us in Pod Jam. I hope that you will too. I hope that you have a great weekend. I'll be back tomorrow. That's right. It's Sundays with Siegel. That's right. Sundays with Siegel tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Lots to talk with him about. And that's it. I'll let you back at your weekend or whenever you're listening to this. I am so grateful to you. Thank you very much for your support. Put out shows every day this week, or at least conversations with smart people every day this week. It's not a full show. I don't do the news and the good stuff and the clips, so I almost don't want to give it that much credit. Sometimes people call them a conversation show, and I'm like, is it really? Is that a show? Okay, sorry. We're already at the end, and I'm still yapping away. I don't want to say goodbye to you, but I have to. John Carroll taking us out, as he always does. Take it away, John.